Okay. So we are started here. I wanted to make sure that I got myself situated and organized. It's funny because we're on my laptop instead of my phone, as you guys usually know from the other application. I have a couple, or at least one person who signed up for a reading ahead of time. So let me just bring up her info here. Let's see. Hi, Chelsea. How are you? Oh, okay. That's awesome. That's so good to know. Thank you so much. And can you remind me, please, what day your birthday is? Happy birthday month. I know I texted or messaged you about it online too, but I just wanted to know so that I want to write it down. Oh, February 16th. Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. I have a couple February babies. I'm like, I need to organize. I obviously have your email and stuff like that, but I'm like, I need to organize everything for like all my people that are in here more often than not. So eventually I'll make that some sort of like automation. And I realized that I can also share my screen. I'm just going to get up my chart generator. Let's see here if we'll see if it'll do this. Let me see. And I will bring up Anne's chart, who's going to do a reading in 10 minutes. And that's good to know that the notifications work better too. Let's see. Okay. Okay. And I'll bring that up there. Okay. So she was asking for abundance too. Hi, Anne. How are you? Can you, when I am on a separate screen, and I'll know this back when I end the stream here, but does it pause or could you see me like still live? Yeah, I don't know what I did, but I was on my MacBook and a little notification. Oh, that's awesome. Popped up when you live. Okay, cool. That's good. That's so good for me to know. Thank you for being here. And like I've done this once before, but it was a while ago. Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. So let me bring up Anne's chart. And Anne, I will probably actually bring up your natal chart as well on AstroSeek so that we can take a peek at that, because that'll be more, I find that recently to be a bit more helpful looking at that in regards to like transits. So I could see what's aspecting your Venus, because it also Venus affecting finances too. So we'll take a look at that. Let's see. Do this. Okay, let me see. There we go. Alrighty. Turn off that. Let's see. See if the studio light changes any mood lighting. Let's see. Okay. Edit that a little bit, and then I'll look at your guys' questions in a second. And then I'll turn some music on my phone this time because I think it's going to sound a little wonky if I use Spotify on my computer. It'll have a weird, like, glitching sound, if you will. Let's do this. Okay. Alrighty. So let me do this. Use my little,
what's going on? Your DJ X here.
Little AI DJ from Spotify. And then let me do AstroSeek too. Hi, Gabe. Orion, how are you? Virgo Venus, yes. Oh, on your phone, but I'm on my iPad. Okay, cool. That's good to know. Okay, that's helpful to know. I'm happy to know that. All right, let's look at AstroSeek. And then pull up your chart here too. I'm so glad I can share my screen. I wasn't sure. I didn't do that the last time, but it's been like almost a year, I think, if not over a year, that I live streamed on YouTube. And in true manifesting generator fashion, I was like, let's just see what happens when I go live. So I was like, okay, technical difficulties. Let me put in all my, titles and things that I forgot that I have to do. October. Oh, and I want to get up actually a transit chart for you And so transit chart. Okay. Okay, and then make sure I have the right time. Do that. Okay. Location, and then we're set. And then we're going to look at the transits for, I'll just do today for the sample. Okay, so let me see. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm so glad. That's so nice. I'm so glad you got to join. Yes. Okay. I love that for the 5. Okay. Perfect. Yay. Yay. Okay. That works out well. Yeah. Good 5 numerology for sure. Let me see. Do that. Okay. That. And then I'm going to read to you actually something else here too. Okay. So let me share. Here. And we'll look at this too. Oh, 2525. Yeah, that's right. And 444. I love that. Yes, my lucky number. Okay, so we're going to do Chrome tab and then this here. Okay. Alrighty. So what we're looking at here is, and I'll just start now anyway, if you're okay with that. And then I can go back to see the little inception here. There we go. Just to make sure, if you're okay with me going ahead and sharing, give me a little thumbs up. And let me know if this looks good too. Does this look weird? Do you guys like how this looks? You could see me and then the chart at the same time. I want to make sure it looks good. Okay, cool. Okay, thank you. And then I'll light this at the same time so we can get started. Yay. Okay, perfect. Thank you guys. So what we're looking at in the inner part of your chart, Anne, is your natural natal placement. So your birth chart, anything in blue there is an aspect that you have, right? So your Virgo Venus, we see that. Fingers up, yes. Fingers up, exactly. But we have your normal natal chart there, right? And then anything on the perimeter or the outside is in orange is the transits or are the transits that we're going through. Right. So as we know, you're a Libra rising, but we're looking at a Placidus chart here. And then going counterclockwise, we have, all of your houses. So generally speaking, I just made an Instagram post about this today, or filmed one rather. That's about your rising sign and why that's important to know. Right now, we actually have Chiron that's on your rising. So at 24 degrees in Libra. So hopefully, coming to a little bit of a close there. So this also tells me that when we're talking about feeling comfortable with abundance, right? Like getting things, putting ourselves out there, rather, that there can be a little bit of a restriction or feeling restricted when Chiron's there, because Chiron, as you know, is known as the wounded healer. So feeling a little tender, feeling a little sensitive when it comes to our appearance. Now, I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head how long a Chiron transit is, but we can look to that for the future to kind of look at when Chiron is going to be out of Libra, off of your ascendant, to get a little bit of a sense of that. And then obviously being a Scorpio sun, we see Scorpio there. That's pretty close, actually. Yeah. And somewhat of a close conjunction to your Neptune too. And your Mercury also in Libra, but 28 degrees. So it's a little bit wider. I'm just getting familiar with what's happening here. Yeah. And then we have Sun in Aquarius. Obviously our Mercury and Pluto are in Aquarius too. Yeah. And in Aquarius, your Chiron is actually activated with your Black Moon Lilith too. Or excuse me, your Black Moon Lilith is what's on your rising. And then, yeah. Chiron in Aries. Right now, not natally. Yeah. Oh, 50 years. Okay. Yeah. So it'll be a little bit of a while. But Black Moon Lilith, I should have said, not Chiron. I always go back and forth between mixing up the two because they're next to each other in my body graph at the bottom on the personality design side. So we'll look at Black Moon Lilith too, which could be close. I mean, who knows? Maybe that's a close transit. I don't pay attention to that as much, which is funny. Oh, around 52. Okay, there you go. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, keeping a little bit of that. Yeah. So then, well, I will say this, right? So when we're looking at Virgo, right, being in technically your 12th house, and right with that moon there, obviously your Jupiter there too, in somewhat of a close conjunction. Let me see, can I do that? No, it'll just do that on my end. I'm working with the limitations of this too. Okay, yeah, I'll zoom up a little bit there and then come back. So looking at your Virgo Venus, right? So if we look at your placements anyway in your natal chart, we have our south node, right, which is just entered in. The nodes go backwards actually. So it's 29 to 0 degrees rather than 0 to 29 degrees in astrology. So your south node is being activated. Also that vertex, that all the zeros here happening at the same time. But that happening right, basically right next to your Venus there. So it's interesting because they're only a degree apart right now. Our south node being in Virgo, and then us having Venus there. You having Venus there in Virgo at 28 degrees. There's this emphasis on what happened in the past, probably reflecting a lot at what happened in previous relationships, right? Going back, and we talked a little bit about this in our generator live training, but reflecting back on why do I feel, what do I feel about this? Hi, Anna, how are you? What worked in my past relationships? What went right? What didn't go right? And I don't want to forget to read to you. And something I wanted to talk a lot about today actually was how I started on TikTok Live a year ago. Was reading from the only astrology book you'll ever need, because I wanted because this is all going to be recorded, so you guys can go and watch it back retroactively. And so I wanted to read about Virgo Venus from this book because I find it to be really, really helpful. So let me go back here. And also always just a good refresher for me as well. Do that. There we go there. Moon. Ascendant. Mercury. Oh, Venus. There we go. It was right to my eyes, right to Virgo. And remembering that, so Virgo automatically is also ruled by Mercury. So we also want to look at your Mercury sign too, to look at like what you value, how you value things, and needing to communicate in relationships. So also having somebody that is communicative, like that is able to talk, right? Also being helpful. Yeah. And then your Mercury is right here, actually, at 28 degrees there in Libra. So also noticing that. And also your Black Moon Lilith going across. So maybe trying out like talking to people you wouldn't normally talk to as well. I always say like, yeah, there are things that we could do in astrology that could predict like, do we want to connect with people? Are we going to have abundance in finances or in love? But I always like to use it as a tool that says, and Anna and I talked about this, like using it as a tool to say, okay, what's my plan of action? Not like, will this happen? Because I always say with human design too, since I primarily am reading for human design, right? With astrology as the supplement, like what is it that you can look to with your intuition, so on and so forth, that can make you feel more proactive rather than like, is this going to happen? Right. So just to kind of lay the foundation there. But all that to say, Venus in Virgo. So if you have Venus in Virgo, you tend to be cautious about falling in love. You sometimes avoid involvement by taking small defects in a person and blowing them out of proportion as major character flaws. You hold yourself on a tight rein because you feel that your feelings will be exploited by someone unworthy. And that could be, right? Yeah. It's interesting because with these, I feel like also nature and nurture, right? With what you did for work or what you do for work, you had to learn how to communicate like pretty directly, right? Or just directly without sparing any feelings, or also being aware of like, okay, am I talking to coworkers in this way? We're triaging, we're getting somebody done, something done in the ER, obviously out of my vocabulary, or knowing, the vocabulary of the ER in that hospital space. But communicating, right? So with communication being so important. And again, like in that Libra Venusian quality, it's like, how do we communicate in a way that's most effective, but also doesn't make people put on the defensive automatically. And I think you're really good at that, but also undefined throat and human design. All right. I wonder if it'll let me pivot over here. Yeah, it's only letting me show the tab right now. I'll pivot to that again. But with your undefined throat and human design, it's like, how do I, very similar to Gemini placements or Gemini risings, like what version of me does this person need to connect with me? And that could be like a double-edged sword in dating, right? Or communicating what your needs are in work, because you can see so easily what somebody else wants from you and give it to them. And that can feel good for a little while, but ultimately, does that make you feel fulfilled long-term is the million-dollar question. What you want in a love relationship is someone who will regard you as special. Curiously, however, when you do give your heart away, it's often to the wrong person who will not always appreciate your fine qualities. For some reason, this position of Venus tends to promote scandal, which is interesting. And again, use it with a grain of salt, because it's like, okay, I don't always have to be in scandalous, situations with people. It doesn't always have to go that way. And this is where this book doesn't account for nuance. So I always encourage you to think about that too. You are refined and intelligent, loyal and sympathetic, and often you are an imaginative writer and teacher. You have an excellent business sense and a quiet but witty sense of humor. That I can see very accurately. Many of our brilliant government leaders and humanitarians are Venus Virgos who have given their love to the world at large rather than to one person. So kind of coming out of the text and the data, right, and just kind of focusing on transits in general, I should say. So more data. I have Pam, I have to remember her last name, but I was listening to something from hers. She's an astrologer, and she was talking, and something she said quite often is that astrology is the science of probability. So we can read this and we could say, okay, this is what could happen. These are the aspects of your chart, but ultimately it's, again, what you do with it and what you carry out that's important. So making a list, yeah, she's great. Making a list of the things that you value, right? As a Virgo Venus, important. It also, Molly, I've heard of too. Yes. But also thinking about, okay, our South Node is in Virgo. So for the beginning of the year so far, a lot of people have been getting sick. They've been indoors. We also have, if I come back out here, looking at Mars still being retrograde in Cancer. I feel like a lot of the time to get up, and show out is also after this retrograde is over. But what we also have is Venus here. Excuse me, that's in Aries, but Venus is about to go retrograde. So Aries Venus, right? Or Aries being in Venus right now. Also your vertex here. Interesting. Yes, this aspect. Yeah, your Pisces Mars. So this will come up a little bit next month too. I'm wanting to get out of the house a little bit, not feeling so stuck, but kind of still feeling a little bit underwater. A little bit of that happening at the same time. But Venus is about to go retrograde, right? So this is, again, a time not just to be like concerned that you're not going to find love during this time, but like, what do I value about love and how I make my money? How can I reflect on what's happening during this time for me, right? And if we look at that, right, like if I come back out here, I'm going to sharing this tab and then go to share my human design tab, right? When we look at your Virgo Venus specifically, right, in gate 46, it's like you need to go out, try things with new people, explore things in real life in order for you to feel comfortable and connected with them. So online dating, not necessarily your scene, although it can be a means to an end to like meet somebody in real life. So I'm not saying that this is a time, yes or no, that something could or couldn't happen, right? I never like to give those kinds of like, it's funny, even you can see it with my mouth, taste being my strongest sense, like those kinds of demands for people. But again, what do you feel would be the best way for you to go about dating at this time based on what your Virgo Venus feels is safe for you, right? So collectively speaking, a lot of people for the first half of the year, just to repeat what I was getting to before I rudely cut myself off in manifesting generator fashion, is that a lot of people are in a little bit more of an introverted space, which, to be honest, astrology aside, generally happens at the beginning of the year. We're in the winter time. A lot of people are indoors, right? Even if you're in a place that's warmer, we see that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so that helps. So someone that you already know, we're not talking about a clean slate. So it's interesting. I think that there's a couple things that'll be happening at the same time, right? Depending on where Virgo is in their chart, they're also somebody that's going to be reassessing their values. I think if you're already interested in them in some way, shape, or form, with that Virgo Venus, it's like making the pros and cons list, which I know we talked about in Patreon, making the list, checking it twice, deciding what you like about them. And then are the things, yeah. And I think like when you take a step back and look at life, do you have, again, Virgo communication? Do you have a clear understanding of why it's been hot and cold? If that's a no, your Virgo Venus, and your Virgo moon, is going to make up reasons as to why that's happening, right? If you don't get a clear answer, if they're not good at communication, right? So it's like, okay, is this a time where you decide, I need to lay some more ground rules here and decide what am I willing to accept? And is this behavior acceptable? And if I'm accepting this now, I think for people, like, taking them at face value, this is just a truth through and through. Even in my own experience, we never want to date somebody for their potential, right? So, like, what is it? It feels, even in like the way that I'm delivering this message, it's like, it feels like I can feel the uncertainty, right? It's like, I don't know what hand it's going to go, but it's a matter of feeling like, okay, do you feel empowered enough to communicate what your needs are and ask that of this person? And if they guess you to death and then continue to act the same way, well, then you have your answer, right? And I think, like, knowing that right now, the people that are good, that are focusing on, being individuals that are coming together in a relationship, which is ultimately what you want to. You don't need somebody that relies on you because they need to rely on you. You want somebody to connect with you because they like to be with you. They like to ask you to do things for them, with them, so on and so forth. Paying attention to that a little bit too. Do you have cerebral, intellectual conversations with this person? And if you do, is that too much of the relationship, right? It's getting back to the basics of A or B, generator, black and white, yes or no questions that can help refine that understanding a little bit more for you, and getting a little bit more clear on what you want, right? What you want out of the relationship. It's interesting. Yeah. If I kind of just think about, it feels like intuitively, and I feel like you probably know this as well, like, this person also is just kind of a little, like, it's funny. I want to say, like, out to pasture, like out to lunch. It'd be funny if this person was a Taurus. I don't know if you know their placements, but can you even have these conversations with this person, right? Like, does that feel comfortable at this time also, right? And I think a big portion of love and relationship, it's interesting. They're so closely tied, especially when Venus is involved too. It's our money, but also the way that we connect with people, obviously. So anytime in my life that I felt some sort of Venus activation, oh, is Venus in Pisces? Okay, Capricorn sun. Okay, so happy belated birthday to him. Yeah, and as a Venus in Pisces, I don't know if you know the gate. I'm glad that you know it anyway, and that you're comfortable having that conversation. Capricorn sun people also always feel a little bit detached, so they can be a little bit hard to read, which is maybe why I think with your presentation, no birth time. Okay, yeah, so you don't know his rising. That's okay. But with his presentation and your presentation, he may think that, again, because of your, I say again, because I've mentioned this before, but because of your emotional wave, you present as less emotional than you think that you are, or you think that you do. So he may think that you're one way, but over time realizes that it's a little bit different, right? It's kind of like, what are the initial reactions, right? And then, kind of retroactively going back and understanding somebody a little bit clearer, a little bit better, so on and so forth, right? So looking at that, right, and kind of thinking about what are the Capricorn placements and the Pisces placements that somebody can have going into, right, this Pisces pile up that we're going to be having of planets in Pisces next month. It's going to be a big time for him to understand with his Venus, what does he value? What does he want? Probably for both of you, right? Since you sit opposite each other, the North Node being activated in Pisces, your South Node, or the South Node being activating for your Venus, a little bit of an opportunity probably for you to talk a little bit more clearly. I would also encourage you, because of what's already been activated during the month of February, and a lot of what we talked about, and when it came to your career, is focusing on, well, with career, what is it that feels like the more obvious choice, and how can I make more moves, and what I want to be doing to get paid? Do I want to continue to decide a lot of the other? Yeah, one or the other. Okay, yeah. And I think when he's retiring, is he retiring? Because this begs another question, right, for your life, another pros and cons list for you to evaluate right now. And if no one booked right after you, I'm actually going to talk a little bit, give you a little sneak peek ahead of time. Okay, no one booked right after you, about what I have planned for us in Patreon and in general with the full moon in Leo, and understanding like release rituals and stuff like that. But is he somebody that you will either have a long distance relationship with, or is he located like where you want to move to, right? Like where you're considering moving to? And is that something that you want to do at this time, to focus on at this time? Does that feel like something that works? And what would that world look like, right? And you may just be open, right? I like somebody too, like, yes, he works a lot right now. And it sounds like if Capricorn too, that Capricorn Pisces Venus too, as somebody who is also a Pisces Venus, we do find a lot of value in our work, right? Our work is really important to us. So taking note of that and deciding like, okay, he's probably somebody that's going to remain busy after he retires, right? So if you like that, right, or you're just kind of him having more time. Okay, good. Open to that. Okay. So that also helps you kind of decide. And I think like, there's so many questions that like I wish I could give direct answers to people right now, but the way that it is kind of for all of us is here's the next step. It's not the final destination. And that's kind of the way that this first quarter of the year is going to go. Oh, I love that. Okay, so he understands that too. Yeah, that's beautiful. Both having grandkids. Okay, that's perfect. So kind of being aware of that flow is really nice, and not having to explain it away. Why you choose to do certain things or moving and all that kind of stuff. So that's nice that he understands that. Yeah, I feel like just with it's interesting because we still also have Saturn in Pisces until April. So there is a little bit wherever Saturn is, it feels restricted. So just with our general transits that are going to be happening right now, right, there is still that little restriction of Piscean energy. So it's like kind of like the fish that still feels that it's being grabbed, but it's still trying to swim away and feel free. There's a lot of change, that both of you are going through collectively at this time. Oh, and a nurse. Okay. So there's a lot of at least good lifestyle understanding there too. So that's like just understanding work and having a lot to talk about in that area, which is nice. And then, yeah, maybe making a list. Hi, Megan. How are you? It's nice to see you 2 times in one day. I'm just finishing up for Anne here right now, but yeah. And if there's any other questions that you have, just let me know in the comments below. And for anybody, I'm doing my introductions in reverse here because I was worried about the tech stuff on the front end. But my name is Brenna. I'm a human design reader of 9 years. I also dabble in astrology. So we're going back and forth here, to kind of look at both situations. I'm a Pisces sun, Aquarius rising, Scorpio moon. And we're doing this in supplementation to my lives over on the other app that we don't know what's going to happen with it. So covering all bases here. No more. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's so true. Okay. That's good to know. Thank you. I know I'm like, this is kind of like my little triage one where we're working out all like the kinks. And I'm like, my 1-3 is like cringing at the same time, but I'm like, we'll figure out the flow. Oh, astrocartography. Okay, perfect. Yeah. It's so funny because I had 3 Aquarius risings today. Megan being one of them, myself, and then Lisa, who is another one that has joined us probably tomorrow, actually over on TikTok Live. And she was asking about astrocartography too. So, oh yeah, so I went to live and it was no one. I followed and then searched you. Okay, interesting. Okay, so that's good to know. Yeah. Did you yeah, because I'll also see if the link on my Instagram helped us at all too. I'll do a little back end stuff. But thank you for letting me know that because that's helpful for me to kind of like think about how it's hard to do this and then I don't have another outside person. Oh, thank you, Anne. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, I love that. Yes. And don't forget, I wanted to ask you, can you write your draconic incarnation cross and the other one in our chat so that I have it or the dates? I can pull it for you, whatever you prefer, because then I have that. Okay, you didn't go through IG. Okay. Yeah, and I'm excited for you. I feel like this is a time for all of us, and I can say just with certainty for everybody and really I've been getting, yes, the end of February, a little bit more clarity, but really to the end of March. And I know Anna can probably, all of you in different ways being tapped into astrology can all understand this in a different way. Thank you so much. But it's really like the waiting period. I know. And that's the one disclaimer I'll say with draconic versus like regulars. Remember this. And this is like, I feel like it's very niche to Gabe, right? because he has his own kind of like wizardry that he's pulling together. Also good for all of us to look into. But to always remember that, like, and just, Anne, I'll keep your chart up as an example right now. But like, as we are understanding our human design, March will be eventful for sure. I know. I'm curious as an astrologer, Anna, like, what are some of the things that you are called to, or some of the things that you've been really noticing? There's so many things that are popping up that are like, a storm is coming, and we're literally getting a snowstorm here tomorrow. But I'm like, I don't like the sensationalization of that. And like, I get it. But a lot of what from anyone that I really respect in the astrology community is like, we've grown up, in the last 20 years, all of us, no matter what our ages are, right? And really just, it's like the hits just keep on coming. Right. But it's like a lot of us are called, and I know all of us are spiritually inclined and have our own practices. And, for Anne, your shamanic work, like, how do we allow ourselves to be incredibly grounded in when things are crazy? Because for all of us that are here, I know for at least the four of us, and if anyone popped in and hasn't been here before, please feel free to say hello. So I can see, I don't have the pop-up feature that, I can say hello to people as they come in and out. Or know who's here without the chat. But all that to say that it's like all of us collectively are being encouraged and called to grow roots in our own areas of expertise so that we can be a little more unswayable. Receive body work. Oh, I don't know what that is. I've actually never heard that before. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, a lot of the repeated themes from astrologers, you guys know, and I love, he is the only person that I have felt, and to be fair, I haven't done too much of my research in this way, but that I felt called to, massage. Okay, yes, that's my go-to monthly appointment is a 90-minute massage with my Aquarius Megan. I just celebrated her birthday with her this past Saturday. But yeah, it's like all of us need to really bloom where we're planted. And I feel like part of my work is to really help you guys to cultivate. And what Megan, you and I were talking about today, like cultivate a way for you to grow sustainably, but like with a steady pace so that you can really accept more clients. Because if you think that, you're like, I don't know, how do I say this? Like, it's really important for the people who feel called right now to grow their spiritual practice, because there's so many other people that are coming to us in basically a second wave, very similar to the astrology and the transits of 2020. Yeah, I wouldn't work well being bombarded. Exactly. And so it's like how even just, again, and I say this all the time, the quality becomes the quantity over time, right? And that's very like Saturn dominant of me to say as an Aquarius rising, and Megan, as being an Aqua rising too. But it's really like, okay, how do we hold space for people? How do we ground ourselves? How do we grow so that we can continue to create this like forward momentum that works really well, that helps us to, again, do it sustainably and not let us feel shaken. Also, because people forget that like as practitioners, we're not immune to the transits. We still feel them too. But it's like when people, and this is what I say too, that really helps if you do any type of like vlog style content, it really helps you as a practitioner and as a sensitive person to keep your side of the street clean when you know that you have something or someone to report back to, right? Especially in this world, that's like the more that you guys like put stuff out there, hold yourself accountable, it allows for that clarity of your own vision to be shared, and it gives you something to feel prideful in the best way, right? A lot of what we're facing with this full moon in Leo on the 12th is like how to feel encouraged, how to feel prideful, how to feel sovereign, right? How to feel excited in the things that we're doing. And being proud of that. I'll actually, and I'll use your chart to explain this. I have a video that I filmed today actually, and we have some Leo placement here. Let's see. We have gate 31 in Uranus. Okay, that's interesting. So having influence in a unique way. And then gate 33. We have, your unconscious side. We were talking about that with gate 19. Then we have 7, 56, 1, 2, 3, 4. Gate 29. And what one am I forgetting? I always forget one. 4, my favorite one. I always say is gate 4 selfishly is my favorite one because it makes it defined for me. Okay, Anna. So we're another intuitive astrologer in the mix. So what I'm sensing with the Venus retrograde and Mercury retrograde, oh my gosh, that's right. is a chance to revisit who and what we value. Yeah. Okay. So we're reflecting some similar energy. And I also sense most of us will be seeing where we need to grow. Yeah. I have felt that. I think I was saying this to Megan today. A lot of us with heavy Aquarius placements or Aquarius placements that are being opposed, that are opposing Leo placements right now are also, design date Leo. Yes, yes, yes. For unconscious. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes, because we make that channel together. If any triggers come up, it's ultimately to strengthen them. Also seeing us spend less overall and use what we have, definitely send some unexpected weather patterns. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, because Venus in general retrograde is again about money for all of us. And I think like it's so funny because there is a TikTok that I saw that was about it was a Spanish woman and my fiance was laughing saying this too with like I grew up on rice and beans, like I'll be okay. And I'm like, I love that food anyway because it's incredibly grounding. Beans are so good for anxiety and your nervous system. So and having Virgo placements also being very helpful. So yeah, looking at our money, yes. And it's like just observing like what are your spending habits? Like one of the exercises I actually gave Megan today was to do something along those lines that I share in my mentorship and like really assessing those values for sure. Oh, Mars, that's right. Okay. And Venus gate 4.5. Oh, I love that. That's so perfect. Rice and beans is so good. Oh, red beans. That's hilarious. And Anna just had red beans again too. Oh, yes. So the ones that I was looking, so I actually, their whole video that you can look at will be out on Friday. But for Leo gate placements, basically what happens is, I'll explain this now as a little tutorial. So from homework, yes. We have the moon changes about every 2.5 days, right? So as the moon shifts from each sign, right, every 2.5 days, it rapid cycles through all 6 of the gates of that sign. So we end the moon in Cancer on February 10th and enter in as the moon's getting more full into gate 56, which sits in our throat center here, gate 36. Then we come down, we're dealing with gate 31, 33, gate 7, gate 4, who I forgot again up here, and we end with gate 29. Gate 29 is the gate placement that our moon is going to be in on the full moon. I'm actually going to do a human design based full moon circle for you guys in Patreon. Anyone who wants to join after, we could do that just as a helpful little exercise. I'm doing a little bit earlier, Anne, because I know that you also do stuff on the full moon and I didn't want it to interfere with that. So I was thinking of you as well. But I wanted to do it through the lens of human design just as a way to kind of inform your practice, which I thought would be kind of fun since all of us are like moon sign junkies here, for lack of a better way to say it. So basically, as we enter in, and again, full moons being about release, I'll walk you guys through what we can release, walking through all of those gate placements and just reflecting upon what we can release with the full moon. So a little bit helpful with that. And then looking at that for every moon cycle. Let's see, I forget what sign the moon is in today. I have my handy dandy phone wallpaper that Anna made for me. Oops, hold on. Let me go back. Oh, sidereal. Okay, yes. I'm like, what day is today? Oh, the moon is in Taurus. Yeah, it's so funny because I felt that Taurus is my 4th house. And I was like, I don't want to leave the house today. Oh, Sunday. Oh, perfect. Okay, great. I'll never be on a Sunday. So that works out. Oh, my husband just signed us up for the gym yesterday. I love that. Yes, disciplined about. Yes, that's I feel that. I'm glad I'm better. I went to bar again for the first time in like a month on Monday. I was so ready for it. I was so ready for it. But that works. Unless the full moon or the new moon falls on a Sunday, I'll always be like on that day. I won't be on Sunday. I'm eating a sandwich and watching this. Yeah, there we go. It's so nice. Like, I feel like a lot of the energy that I get is like back to survival instincts. It's like us coming down just like intuitively. And I want to practice on you guys as guinea pigs, as like my Patreon members too, for my intuitive gifts, because it's something that I've been called to do for a while. And you guys know that have watched me for a long time. You're like, she's not pulling this from anywhere in human design. Like I am as the guidepost, but it's like using tarot cards. It's like they're just a guide to like pull through things intuitively. And a lot of what I get is like us going back to the brass tacks of like, what do we need in our home? What do we need for food, our shelter, defrosting, yes, food, shelter, our bodies feeling good, us feeling empowered, the mind-body connection, grounding ourselves. Again, what can you do to feel powerful, right? It's a big, big, big aspect of that. And then also with the Aries gate placements too. Your grandma told me, oh yeah, thank you. She's like, tell her. You're so connected too. I actually did her chart today, like with what I think is her, about her birth time and her technically being a Cancer rising. So you'll see that in I don't know if I'm going to post it tonight on Instagram or on tomorrow, but I'll see. But yeah, I feel that because I think as Aquarius risings, like we just, and this is what Megan and I were talking about too, like we just kind of, it's so factual to us that I feel like we don't know. We're surrounded by a lot of people who grow into their psychic gifts, but especially with my placements with my Scorpio and my Pisces, I feel like I just don't, and I remember thinking that from very young, like, well, don't you all see this? Like, and not like literal ghosts seeing it, but like, well, don't you see that this is like this? Like, I don't get that. Like, I don't get what the disconnect is, so I don't say that as like a bragging point, but just like, I didn't even know what I didn't even know. If that makes sense. What's really funny, this is actually kind of a crazy story that proves that, is that I was watching, I don't know if you guys know of the show The Dead Files. Yes. Cause we're like, to Megan, we're like, duh. I feel like that's why we ended up in insurance too. For all of us that are intuitive and psychic and ended up in insurance, like we just wanted to do something that felt normal. We're like, what's the most earthly, 3D earth version of a job that I could do? It's like medical, right? Like, and a lot of us being in like, corporate job, like what feels like the most like grounded, earthy thing that we could do to pivot away from that, or just like cosplay what it means to be human. Right? Oh, yes. Oh, my God. Yes. There you go, Anna. So who wasn't in insurance here? I guess, Anne, you dabbled with insurance. Yeah. Because our 5, any of us who have a gate 5, we really love that. We really love that. Yes, seeing ghosts is a normal. Yes. But before I forget to say this, with the show The Dead Files, I just happened to turn it on again, and there's this woman who's a psychic, Amy Allen, and I love the show because it's so my speed. It's like I'm logical, but I'm spiritual at the same time. And how do we tread that line and not try to force too much of one side, and cause some, as all my Libra placements will appreciate, that dysregulation and equilibrium. And basically it's the psychic medium. She goes in, reads the energy of the place. She has a guy that goes in ahead of her, the little cameraman, and he flips around any, identifying pictures, kind of cleans and surveys the space to like, make sure that there's nothing that would sway her. And simultaneously, at least how they present in the show, there's a retired New York City detective named Steve who goes and looks at the history of the place that somebody calls in and says is haunted. So I started at the beginning and I skipped over the first episode because the second episode was in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And I was like, you guys know I'm a Jersey's girl. I'm Monmouth County, born and raised. And so I was like, I've spent lots of times and lots of things down in Asbury Park. So there was one day that I was driving down from where I live now down to Asbury, which is a bit of ways away. And I was driving and I felt so like sick. Like I just had like a pit in my stomach and I was like, okay, like I've never felt like that. And I was like meeting somebody there at this restaurant that, like I didn't think twice about. It was a newer restaurant, kind of off the beaten path. And it turns out that it was the restaurant that was on this episode of the show, The Dead Files. And it was Plan B restaurant. And now it's something called the Speak Eatery. And she was saying how she felt so sick, like in the restaurant. And I was like, how crazy. And I think that you guys could probably, it's so good, right? Like you can relate to this too, where like we start to get into the headspace or the energy. Like this happens to me. And I say this all the time with people that I meet with. And if I feel a certain way that feels like I kind of got sideswiped by an energy, I know that I'm pulling into that person's orbit before they've messaged me, before I meet with them. Like it just is like, I can feel them before. It's like how we know like someone's going to call us or text us, right? Like we kind of get that sixth sense, especially the more like connected we are to people. And so I was like, what? Because it was so overwhelming, like that sense of nauseousness, that I was like, this is crazy. And there's been a lot of like death in that area, like just historically, like, I mean, during Prohibition, it was booming, right? In the 1920s, it's a shore town, you know, it's not very big. There was a cruise ship that had docked off of it's called the Paramount Theater now, that was like redone, and they partially, and people died there on that ship. It had like docked or marooned like right outside there. There was a fire in the Paramount Theater that a lot of people had died, and I always felt kind of easy in there. You can, like, you're not supposed to go upstairs, but you can make your way upstairs. So I will not confirm or deny, because this is recorded, if I've gone to uncharted territory before, right? I plead the fifth, but all that to say that, like, you can just feel that uneasy energy. And I grew up on a lot of Scorpio lines and astrocartography as well for myself. The client Lisa that I had earlier today was saying that she felt kind of uneasy, and she was out west. And I was like, you should also look at your astrocartography for those areas, especially anyway. And Megan, you both, I don't know if anyone else here has gate 46 in their body graph, but if you have gate 46, you'll even more so, your body will tell you physically, like immensely, intuitively, or like something that you need to change something, right? Megan, obviously, you know, we were just talking about this. And so, like, if you feel really somatically off, and especially for you as well, with all of that Virgo that you have there. Oh yeah, gate 46, right? Wait, did I pivot? Gate 46 in the G center here. Because this is right on the cusp. This is actually your Venus, right? I have your right birth info here. Yeah. So gate 46 in the G center, or, you know, to be fair, interestingly enough, or maybe you don't experience it that way. I'm curious too, like, because this is where nature and nurture comes into play, right? Like, being in the medical field for so long, if you're, and it's funny because I'm on live 46 minutes right now, if it also ties into being preemptive about things more than the average person when it comes to your body. So maybe not pushing yourself, or having access to certain medication, or like a level of education about the body that, like, those of us in healthcare just don't have, right? If that changes things. So I'd be curious to know, we could talk more about that too, or if you feel inclined to share it all. But yeah, 46 is an interesting one. It really is. I always say that people get involved in schmex, schmugs, and schmuck and schmall at the risk of, I don't know what my audience controls are on here. I have to check for next time, but you do, Megan. Yeah, I was looking at that. It's the only gate that you have in your undefined G center. And so, like, when you have, and you don't have any, well, yeah, your ego motivation center, your heart center is completely open. But when you have like your root center that has one gate here, like just gate 19, that's what we call undefined. So it's like the technical term. So Megan, it's very on the nose with everything that we were talking about today. And more, yeah. And see, it's so funny, right? Like, especially being in that that space too. You're like, I'd rather go with the holistic stuff. I've seen what I've needed to see, right? It's actually crazy. So I took my dad to one of his doctors yesterday, and I was with him yesterday, and we enjoyed, you know, each other's company and knocking around town and stuff, and driving through some, you know, old like local spots. A lot of pretty views like of the water where we were. And his doctor was actually my grandmother's doctor. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, need to know basis for sure. For sure. Need to take basis. And his doctor is very nice, but it's interesting. Like, I know, so my grandmother, I don't know if you guys have ever seen or heard of the movie Dope Sick, but she got on Oxy, I'll say, OxyClean, right? I'll say that for the sake of the live, when she was seeing him, and she became addicted to it and was hallucinating. And I think was part of what, I know she doesn't like me talking about this, but I say it for the when I first started to notice how doctors really, like, it opened my eyes to what they were in it for, right? And like pharmaceutical reps and things of that nature, you know, and how, oh yeah, oh wow, that's right, Megan, I forgot about that. Yes, oh, that's so challenging. Oh my gosh, yeah, surgery only and then detox for sure, for sure. I know, I think about that and I'm like, I'll use it when I have to, but I definitely am like, I feel this year too, probably, and maybe to your point, Anna, things becoming more restricted. Oh, yes, that Gemini for sure. Talk about, it's like using the nature versus nurture and the powers for good versus like not so, nefarious purposes. I don't like to say evil per se, but like that definitely having an effect for sure. For sure. Yeah, it's so interesting. Gemini is such an interesting placement. The like whole, Gemini, Cancer, Leo summer season is always really interesting. Like summer babies too have their own unique blend of things for sure. That quarter of the year, if we will, I always find people that struggle with those placements. I feel like a lot, like in their own way too. It's interesting. I haven't thought more about that. It's kind of like something that's come into form more so recently. I always say with this information, like I'll always understand more when I have to understand more. But yeah, if you guys have any questions too, as I'm yapping away, there's 109 things I can yap about. But if there's anything else that you want to put in the chat, or sign up for a reading, you can totally do that. I'll have to figure out what the logistics are with that. I'm going to test something out actually, just for the sake of putting the link here. Let me see, because I can put it in the chat, I think, and that maybe make it, yeah, okay. And then and I can pin that. Okay. All right, I'll do that moving forward. I just wanted to see if that worked. So I can always pop that in the chat, but yeah, it's interesting. So from the human design lens, actually, and to use you again, Anne, as an example, I had for the full moon in Leo, I'll chat away as you guys may or may not be typing anything, but looking at all the 6 gate placements of Leo, right? And having an undefined throat, but having gate 61 and gate 63 there, it's this extra emphasis on looking at, you can look at every gate placement, every aspect of your human design chart from so many different lenses. But what I've used as kind of like the little guide, at least that I can share right now, right, with what I've been practicing is when we have the full moon, right, it's a time to release. But when we have the new moon, it's a time to manifest and take action on our manifestations. And so gate 31, for example, and looking at it through the full moon, gate of power, right? And wanting to have power, wanting recognition, right? Wanting to have influence is looking at, okay, the lens of releasing, right? Since we have that activation in the full moon in Leo, what is it that I need to release in order for my influence to come to fruition? I'll actually read the little description for the heck of it from the definitive book of human design, the one that has been mutilated from my repeated usage. Let's say 206. Yeah, gate of influence. So it's interesting. The little underscore note, if you will, is that the law of friction, whether active or passive, that engenders transference and thus influence. So creating some sort of tension in your influence in the words that you speak to cause an action, either transference, meaning making somebody else feel the same way, or having influence on them. So it's interesting. Gate 31 is designed to be influential. Collective leadership is collegial, not hierarchical. I always mix up that word. It provides the vision for a new direction and shows others how to achieve it rather than doing it for them. The 31st gate manifests its potential for verbal influence through election. When money is the energy used to move a person into a position of power, instead of the cooperative will of the people, the collective's overall ability to ensure humanity's future is easily perverted. Your voice through the 31st gate says, I lead, is not heard until backed by the energy of the majority. The people are the ones who must act on what your voice says. The influence of your vision for society will not be transferred nor felt with the collective's energy moving it into the public realm. Your leadership must take into account the desires of your followers and address the good of the whole. I lead means influencing others for good or for ill by effectively transferring your vision for a new and trustworthy pattern for them to carry out. Without the presence of gate 7, which you don't have, right? You may seem like just an empty voice. Can you guys put something in the chat so that I know when I pin the comment it didn't boot you out at all? Like just an emoji or something, because I want to make sure that it still goes. And then if it doesn't in a second, then I'll know that I'll unpin it. I don't think that would be the case, but I just want to confirm. Because I'm like, maybe I didn't see. Oh, it pinned. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. That worked out. I just saw that now. Okay. That works. Thank you. So what's interesting is that to go on like another layer. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Another layer. It's interesting because like for Anne's case, for example, we have gate 31 that's split between our conscious and our unconscious side, both in her Uranus, right? So Uranus means when we take that into consideration, not only do we have this desire to be, thank you, to lead and to be influential, but we come in and it says, okay, Uranus means that it's a little chaotic, right? And as we know, Uranus has been a little active recently. Uranus is going to be active throughout this year. Let me actually bring up Uranus. I will share this now. And Megan, I'll look at your comment in a second. Oops, let me see. There we go. Yeah, so Uranus in Taurus, right? So it's interesting because it's a lot of how I've been talking about it is the instability in groundedness, Uranus being in Taurus. And that's probably what you were just saying, because I caught, I think, a little end of Taurus at 23 degrees, right? So we have a little bit of this extra activation here, which is interesting, you know, with that a little ascendant line there. But, you know, from the like Uranus perspective, Taurus being ruled by Venus also upsets unusualness, unique things happening when it comes to the things that usually keep us grounded. So paying attention to that too. Yes, you have a North Node in Taurus. It's funny because I was thinking about that today, Megan, but let me pull up your chart actually and I can share. Oh, okay, you can hear. Yeah, okay. It may have glitched a little bit. Hold on, let me see. Oh, I have to. Let me do this. I'll keep myself on the screen here as I pull up your chart, Megan. Pending. Okay. Let's do this for the sake of it. Or you know what? Let me do that for a second. Okay. There we go. Oh, gate 10 you also have in your G center. Okay. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Anna. So with the North and South node, right? So we have your North node in gate 27, which quite a few of you, I know Anne also has this. I don't know if any of the rest of you have gate 27, but North node being in Taurus means that a lot of it, and I think for a lot of, I feel like I have a lot of the opposite of this because my North node is in Scorpio than a lot of my folks that like I've been helping to grow their businesses recently and just get their spiritual work out there in ways that it's needed. But it's like a lot of the collective energy right now is like reminding us how to see things that are lighter in the face of adversity. How do we allow ourselves to still enjoy things that are happening while the earth is chaotic? It's like, yeah, exactly. And it's like generational time frame, right? Because we're like 8 years apart. So, and happy belated birthday. I should have said that earlier. I was like so in like work mode. But happy belated birthday too. But all that to say that it's like, how do we remain lighter, right? Because sometimes it's interesting, like with your placements too, a lot of how I express, you're welcome. Thank you. But I explain Taurus placements as wanting things to just be lighter. You don't really want too much mess, too much conflict, right? Too much like disruption, right? Like you're not really interested in getting your hands dirty. And I don't mean that in like a negative connotation, excuse me, but like you're not interested in getting your hands dirty in a way that feels like unnecessary, right? It's like, how do you really, and a lot of what we were talking about too with Gate 21 is how do you enable people to do things on their own, right? So without giving too much away, with what we were talking about with your business, it's like you're encouraging people to do things on their own, right? I think especially just with the way that you grew up, you're like, I have fulfilled, enough of that nervous system dysregulation, trauma, checked the box, of where I've left, what I've left behind of that disruption. Interestingly enough, like we were talking about Gate 28 with the gate of the game player for you, it's like not needing to hustle, right? Or grind in a way that feels like it's funny, the word that I wanted to say was unethical. Yeah, which makes sense because like if you think about it with your signature, right? And funny, like using peace is that your signature theme is peace as a manifestor, right? So it's like feeling more peaceful, feeling lighter, coming away from anger, right? It's like I always say this, like for our signature and our not self theme, we feel anger and frustration every single day. Or I should say, as manifestors, right? Yeah, same for, oh, yes. You have that, yes, that connection too with Gate 19. It was funny because a lot of, and also being in your emotional wave, Megan, but Gate 19, a lot of it, and it's funny because it's kind of like giving like I cry on my birthday, is like deciding on your birthday, like your birthday should be about you and not about anybody else. Like what is it that Megan wants to do today? Which as a manifestor can go a little bit easier than not. But that with an open G center is not necessarily always the case. So paying attention to that also. But yeah, Gate 19, no, I was going to talk about Gate 19. I was going to talk about, our signature and our not self theme, to roll myself back. Focusing on, okay, I feel frustrated. What do I have to do every single time? And this is where, like, as manifesting generators, it happens so quickly. And you may notice this too, Megan, because you're feeling it. And even my projectors, right, from your undefined sacrals, feeling it from outside sources. It's like, okay, I have this like reboot period, multiple reboot periods throughout the day where I'm like, okay, I need a break because then I go do this, right? I had an hour break between your session today, Megan, and then the woman I had beforehand. And I was like, okay, well, there's multiple different things that I could do during this hour, but I know that like, okay, I went a little bit over. I only have like 50 minutes now. I have to do some admin stuff. So that means I really only get like 40, 35 minutes of a break. So there's nothing like that I can do that quickly that isn't going to exhaust me to be prepared for Megan's reading, right? So if I think about how I feel when I try to get a lot of things done and I'm trying to cram things in between a session when I need a break, for you may notice anger. For any of my fellow man-gens and generators, we feel frustrated because we're focusing too much on the wrong thing, most likely being impatient, focusing too much on the wrong thing. Not really using that as a moment to just kind of pivot. And I think over time, it's learning how to not sit in that anger and frustration, because a lot of us who are sensitive, that can kind of taint our mood for the day. And we don't have time, frankly, to sit in it. Like life is too short, but that's a learned skill. It's very easy to say that passingly in a comment, and not have that be something that I can't say that I haven't learned over time. I always have a timeline in my head and map out. Yes, exactly. I reverse engineer. That's like you guys have probably seen from my other clips. I'll do the top 3 or the top 6 the night before I go to sleep. So I'm like, okay, what has to get done today? And my productivity hacks always change. Right now, I've really been blocking off a lot more on my calendar to just give myself a lot of buffer time. A lot of this season, especially because I was so sick for January, was like that reassessment of what actually has to get done versus what do I think has to get done, and being realistic about how long certain things take me, right? For any of us with Gate 28, it's a constant reassessment or triage of how and when and why we're using our time that way. And trying not to be too over hyper vigilant about it. because like it's too that can exhaust us too, and then we get too much into our head. Like the way you worded it, the way I have to do this. So actually I'll have 35 minutes. Oh yeah. So I will do this here. Yes, exactly. Exactly. I'm like reverse engineering for like, okay, well, and asking, we like therapize ourselves. Well, how do I feel about that? How do you feel about that? How do you feel about only having that much time? And it's your Pluto too. Gate 28 is also your Pluto on both sides, your conscious and unconscious side. So Pluto is conjunct your south node within 5 degrees or so. Then that means so having that, also transforming the way that you look at time, which is also really interesting to think about in regards to what we talked about today. It's helpful because it's like it also fits in with our Gate 5. Gate 5 is so severely underrated. I feel like I'm so into the gates because it's an easy way for us to understand how we work through our day. And honestly, a lot of my understanding of the gates is just through the power of observation and listening to the repeat themes in myself and other people who have Gate 5 versus 15 and what that kind of looks like for all of us. But Gate 5, like we really need a structure. And so that's where when I talk about like leaving a 9 to 5 as somebody with a Gate 5 and flowing through, its sustainability in that way and like starting something new in a sustainable way, it's really like what's the new structure that we give ourselves, and then really taking ourselves seriously enough to sit with that schedule, and to sit with that structure. And that's why like instead of I have really my only things that will take up a certain time of the day or like meetings that somebody else has booked or my lives. But throughout the day, I'm like I have my half loose plan. I know, when I have deadlines or things that are due, and then everything else is a little bit more like kind of like go with the flow for what I feel is important for what I know that I need to get done, or what feels a little bit more intuitively assess. And I think that a lot of what, to your point, Megan, too, of me saying that, I use that a lot for social media as well, because like sometimes like I just hit a wall with social and I'm like, what do I have to do to just stay consistent, answer my people, be there for them. But if I'm more doing like a lot of, quote unquote, back end stuff where it's not really back end, I have more meetings that I'm reading with people, reading for people, which I'm always, grateful and happy for. It means that, but that energy and that time has to come from somewhere else. Right. So I'm like, okay, well, I have 5 minutes to put together, at least like to film this video, to do this thing. I did it today with my Instagram reel. And so what can I do in 5 minutes? That kind of has already been an idea that I've worked on in my head. I drive a lot. So, cause I have to, I don't know, I'm always bouncing around somewhere. And so I'm like, okay, the days that I do leave my house, the days that I do venture out, I use that time in the car to really think about things. I don't know if any of you like drive, and I know Megan, driving probably isn't applicable for you right now too. But whenever you're kind of in those transitory states where you have to do like a human task, like it's important to kind of focus on like, okay, if you don't want to do the human task, like the laundry, you don't want to do laundry, but it has to get done because the kids need clean clothes for school. How can you occupy your mind with thinking about something that crosses a check mark off your list or crosses something off your to-do list? And says, I find that so interesting because I have always done shift work and had an exterior structure. Meds due this time, lunch trays come at this time. Yes, it's so helpful in a lot of ways. I think that it kind of and you may, I don't know, Anne, did you like that, or like did you like that predictability, or did you find it like, did you not like it? Like I'm curious like how you felt about that, which I feel like for either way, I feel like sometimes we like it until we don't at the same time too. Like it feels good for a little while and then we're like, okay, I know what to expect. I want to expect the unexpected now. Ironically, it's interesting because I feel like with your Virgo placements, that could kind of go either way too. And we could see how that takes on like two sides. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like it until I don't. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I like it until I'm ready to have a different focus. I like it until I'm ready to have something different to focus on. I feel that. It's like taking stock of what you feel like you need. And I think just intuitively, like, when we sense and get, for all of us being intuitively inclined, and we sense like what's a change is coming about on the horizon, looser structure. Yeah, which is nice. So you get a little bit of that break for your own sanity and just like a different change of pace. I think that's why a lot of us in, Megan, the ultimate, top achiever, right? I don't even like to say overachiever because I feel like, being productive can always have a negative connotation, but that ultimately is what keeps us like striving for better and for more and being a top achiever in a 9 to 5 job, because we always need to be doing something. I know, especially having a Pisces second house too, if I don't feel like I'm needed at a job and I am at a job and I'm just paid for sitting there, I am not I was never the receptionist girly, unless I had something else where it was like okay for me to have my laptop out and be doing something else at the same time. I was never the person that could just be paid to like sit and do something. I would do that, like if I were to do that now, right? Like in my later years, so to speak, I would do it at a job where like I would have to be studying for something else, or like say like it was the job that I put on autopilot, but I could bring my human design book, and write things on the side if I were doing things along those lines. But I think just important to know like how to keep your sanity in a 3D world as a spiritual entrepreneur is also something that's like interesting to consider. Yeah, that's spot on. Managing and doing socials, training and working alongside. Exactly. Multifaceted. I do my chart calls and messages and have to have the list go away by yes, exactly. Where like that sense of accomplishment is like, how do I cross off everything off my to-do list to just feel like, okay, I can see. Well, I always say that with generators and man gens, I'm gesturing to my, what you guys know when I'm on TikTok, you'll see it again tomorrow, but all my papers, like, I'm like, okay, I'm crossing this off the list. And now, right, like being somebody that like I am my own show, I'm my own boss, and we're best boss and worst employee all in the same day. If I have something that continuously rolls over on my to-do list, onto the next day, I say, okay, well, what is it that I am procrastinating on, and why do I keep adding this to my to-do list but it's not getting done? I reassess its importance after like a week or so. Every Sunday roughly, or just once a week at some point, I'll do a brain dump on like one side of a sheet of notebook paper, and I'll think about all the things that are kind of swirling in the ether of my mind that I have to accomplish, and then I'll use that as a tool as well to break down the top 3 to 6 things I want to do each day. And to your point, and too, like some days I just put something down there that's like silly that I know I'll get done, like brush my teeth or, fold this load of laundry or, things like that, to just give me that adrenaline hit. And it's so funny because like I know what I'm doing to myself, but it really does help. Had my entire insurance day mapped start to finish and add in additionals throughout the day. Yes, exactly. Because there's always things that we can fill. I feel like a lot of what I've been restructuring is like really, and it's so hard. I don't know if Anna's still here or not, but like with Pisces second houses, which you have as well, Megan, as a fellow Christ rising, what we were talking about today is like our worth being tied to production, right? But also us working for when we're in the mood for them, right? With Pisces placements, it can be like a challenge for us. And then I also have Saturn there. And my Venus. So I have my trifecta in that, in the second house. So it's like, okay, what my worth has always been, and my people pleasing, right? Or coming out of people pleasing, which, always creeps up again now and again, is in relation to like production, right? And what I can produce and what I can put out there. But it's like, what makes me happy versus me making other people happy? How much do I put out there, and those types of things. Like, I mean, a year or 2 years ago, I was like, I'm posting on TikTok 6 times a day, right? But now my business has shifted. So it's when I was posting 6 times a day, I didn't have people online that were meeting with me for reading. So it's like a little bit of a different situation, that we were going with at the same time. But yeah, so it's like that. Okay, gate 5, my track is changing. What does that look like? And thank God. So I've seen that, and astrologically, it says that the metaphysical and spiritual path. Exactly. Because the Pisces is like the end of the zodiac, right? Pisces energy rules all of our 12th houses, no matter what our sign is, right? Yes, Pisces second house. I have PDFs that I've been doing for teaching people how to make money using their second house in addition to their human design. And I've been looking a lot at second houses, and because I have so many personal planets there, I have an intimate relationship with the second house. So it helps, to teach people how to think about their job and their daily life, and spending, 40 plus hours a week doing something, and making you, all of us, feel less crazy, right? And how we spend so much of our time there, and with the people we spend our most time with, right? So it's like, I always knew that regardless, even before astrology, that my work had to be incredibly emotionally fulfilling because of my Pisces second house, right? So looking at your second house for all of you that are here to kind of think about what sign rules that house, right? For my people that are like, say, Capricorn or Tauran a little bit, right? Like Taurans, or I feel like Tauran second houses are the people that like they can work a receptionist job, or like their job that they have. Tauruses in general, and they have, yes, 12, you do, yes, 12th and 10th. That's right. Excuse me. 10th as well for me too. And that's another indicator. Like I always look at 10th houses, like when I go deeper with somebody. Scorpio. Yes, it's like any water sign, we need to have a little bit more emotional depth, flexibility. It's interesting because dealing with life and death in Scorpio, or like near death experiences, is also very Scorpio second house. So working in the hospital, right? Also really interesting to think of it through that lens. I was taught that Capricorn is like the actual death, like the skull and crossbones, whereas Scorpio is like dying in decay, right? It's like we almost died, but we made it. And as a Scorpio moon, that's how I feel or have felt in the past. Every time I had an emotional upset, oh my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And then I'm back. Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. I actually had, I don't know if you've ever looked into, or if we talked about this, and like a death doula as a Scorpio second house. I actually have somebody that I owe, I'm sending, I should say a YouTube reading for. So anyone who subscribes to my channel, if you're tuning into this and are new, if you subscribe to my channel, I have YouTube thank you readings that I'm doing. So 5 minutes is a thank you for subscribing. Or if any of you haven't done that already, fill that out as a little extra thank you. I'm getting back to those this week. But yeah, one woman talking about being a death doula and helping people transition, or just even writing, like educating people on that is really interesting, or how, that's kind of one of the other many hats that you wear without really people recognizing that fully. Cause the hospital is still, relatively speaking, a hopeful place for a lot of people. Yeah, I've done hospice and thought it would be, yes, that's right. Yeah, well, because you have to think of like Libra, like too. It's like, it's harder with hospice to have boundaries, I think, energetically and emotionally too, which can be, Libra, Venus ruled. It's like Venus rising, Libra ruled, Venus ruled, having like a little bit more levity, right? Very similar to like Megan with like a Taurus and Libra are both ruled by, Taurus and Libra are both ruled by Venus, so wanting it to be a little lighter is helpful. Oh, Mars and Scorpio for me, lots of near death, but I made it. Yeah, that's so crazy. I never thought of that, but that makes sense. Mars being in Scorpio, interestingly in your 10th house too. And it's interesting when you think about like your reputation shifting, like often with Mars in that spot too, or just Scorpio in the 10th house too. I find so, I mean, I love, like I said this, and it's so funny because I say it and I don't realize how polarizing it sounds until one of our Aquarians, Mo, who's a projector in our Patreon, had mentioned, like, I always think about death like beforehand. Yeah, 9th house Scorpio. Yes. I have a very wide, because of Placidus, I have a very wide 9th and 10th house. So a lot of my Scorpio also has that 10th house energy to it too. But it makes sense with how much I nerd out, and I remember that 9th house is our Scorpio. Thank you for that. Yeah, yeah. It's interesting. There's different elements of that. Like how that plays out. But that's why I like Placidus. Like I think whole sign is amazing for so many reasons, but Placidus allows for that nuance of like what I feel like I already have intuitively seen between the lines, and allows for a little bit of that flavor to come through, and just the ways that I've experienced it in my own life. But I think that I will say this, that for people who want to grow to be very big in astrology, a lot of it is a lot of the astrologers that have bigger, prominent followings too, or apps and things like that, tend to lean a little bit more heavily to whole sign because it's also more easily teachable. but I like it because, especially with the way I teach and even my 7-second videos that you guys have seen on TikTok, like I use them as not to like be like a, dangling a carrot for information, but to give people a taste to provoke a sense of thinking about their chart in a different way. But a lot of people, it's interesting. I saw somebody comment this. I think Erica, who is Erica, like a lot of people have that learned helplessness that can, interestingly enough, come from like religion. She was saying, where like people like learn to pray and give it up to God, which I think can be helpful in a lot of ways for people, but not to the point where it teaches like that we have no control over like what we can do each day, which I don't think that any of us here are like that. We're definitely people that are more proactive folks that like to get things done and, have, how do I word it? Like, be proactive. We like to have a say in the things that we do and make sure that life doesn't just happen to us, but for us. Right. And so I was thinking something that comes up a lot recently is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. I think that's a Tim Tebow quote or something like that. But I find it very, very true for our placements. Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting. I've been thinking about that. Just even with my personal placements and how they're laid out and how much Scorpio and Pisces and how that worked out through, career. And it's interesting for the three of us that are chatting, now I know there's 4 of us here collectively, but the 3 of us in the full chat, like how much our intuition plays into our work and how our 2nd or 10th houses are a water sign too, which is interesting. A lot of air too. I feel like air is more of like the detached observer of like, being intuitive in career, if we're talking strictly about like spiritual entrepreneurship in some way. And then a lot of my earth sign placements for 2nd and 10th houses tend to be the people that are like, okay, but I want to be seen. I want that recognition. Similar a little bit to my fire sign, 10th and 2nd houses. Because, if you think of fire, with 2nd house, Leo, for example, they're going to be people that with the full moon, very activated right now, feeling that. Yes, 10th house Cancer. Yes, yes, yes. And yeah, and that retro, it's interesting because that Mars retrograde is sitting right on top, which it's funny. I just clicked back to the visual of when I had your chart up earlier today. But scrolling at the top of your chart and seeing that sitting at your 10th house, it's like not being able to take action or take clear action until after the retrograde is over. And then you'll feel like you'll kind of come to a little bit. I think like to Anna's point earlier, like we're feeling, it's like the visual I just got was like pulling back the chainsaw to get it going, not Texas Chainhouse Massacre style, but like we're revving the engine, we're getting it ready to go. And then March, we're like, okay, we're ready to show up and show out and do things right now. Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking of that in relation because we've had some decent snow. Last year was a mild winter for us in the Northeast, but we're getting a lot of snow this next week. And I'm like, this is such a good, like, I'm glad I don't, it's good because the outside reflects how I feel on the inside with not wanting to go anywhere and be out. And this time last year, I was going to so many different events and I had something each month for my human design happy hours, which I did in person. And I just didn't feel like it was, necessary for me this year. I was like, okay, how do I show up online more and meet myself where I'm at? And I pushed myself a lot in December, which is probably part of the reason I got sick in January. But I always use my own tools and my wisdom as a point of self-reflection to just kind of identify like what is happening, like how can I, use myself, which is very 1-3 of me too. So like my 3rd line in my profile being like, how can I teach from my own personal experience too and give you guys a solid foundation so you don't have to trip or make the same mistakes that I did. It's interesting because the number is 1, 2, 3 right now too. But yeah, I feel like, even to just continue on the conversation, maybe I'll read, even just have a little bit of a recap. Something I wanted to do too is I can read through all of the Venus signs. Megan, I read Virgo, but I can also do it again so it's all in order. To read from the only astrology book you'll ever need. It's called Megan, your Venus is gate 60. And we were talking about Aquarius Venus or Capricorn Venus for you. As I know, your Mercury's in Capricorn, Aquarius. Okay, perfect. So I'll start with Aquarius and then we'll work our way back. And I'll read Pisces Venus after that, Anne. So that'll give you some helpful clues too, but it'll be helpful because I'll read all of the Venus signs, and then this will be nice for getting people prepared for their Venus retrograde. And also understanding for all of you that are also into this, like knowing what different people's Venus signs are. Now you can scroll to the end of this recording and listen back to help your own people too. So, okay, Venus in Aquarius. So Venus in Aquarius promotes a kind and loving nature. You are helpful, charitable, and giving, but you are not an emotional person. You have an intellectually detached attitude toward love. To you, personal freedom is most important, and any relationship must leave you free to explore varied interests and hobbies, meet new people, and enjoy a wide range of friends. You cannot tolerate jealousy and will walk away from any emotional scenes. Also helpful in insurance. You believe in fairness and openness, and as a Venus Aquarian, you are most likely to have platonic friendships because sexual involvements are more emotionally binding than you would like. You are immensely popular and can attract a great many lovers. Often, however, you choose to direct your personal magnetism toward larger concerns and more enduring verities more than mere romance. Aquarius is the sign of hopes and wishes, and Venus in this sign usually grants you what you dream of, though not until midlife or later, which is interesting because, like, I have a friend who's a Capricorn sun, Cancer moon, and Aquarius Venus, and I would say that Cancer moon or those softer placements help with feeling a little bit more emotionally inclined. So again, as I said for Anne earlier, taking this with a little bit of a grain of salt, with what your other placements are can be helpful. You're like, okay, that tracks, that doesn't. So Venus Pisces, for example. So as a Venus Piscean, you are inclined to have tender emotions and a deep capacity for devotion. In love, you are gentle, kind-hearted, and extremely sensitive and fickle. It is not that you mean to be inconsistent. It's simply that being in love is such a wonderful feeling, and being loved makes you feel complete. You have an unfortunate penchant for choosing the wrong kind of lover, the kind who will take emotionally but not give back. And that's where I'm like, I learned that with my ex, but not my fiance. Gemini moon. Yes, that's right. Gemini moon. So accurate. Sorry, I'm a little fuzzy. Venus Pisceans often have a secret love affair that causes them grief, which, like, I felt that again younger, but not something now, right? Detach is spot on, but I'm kind. Exactly. I care for you, but do you away from me. You are completely intuitive about love, never logical. That's accurate. No other position of Venus can be as self-sacrificing or places more importance on the happiness of loved ones. You have true empathy for the problems of another person. And Venus also indicates an imaginative and a creative artistic flair, which helps you put your feelings into writing, acting, or music. Venus Pisceans are so generous that money can slip through their fingers. And it's interesting because when we think about, for me, I have, and this will be interesting for you, Anne, as well, right? Looking at what other placements that he may have in Pisces. I have Saturn conjunct my Venus. So it teaches me very quickly how to not, when I'm too giving, I have to be like, okay, I'm aware, like now I'm without, but I have to put on my own oxygen mask first. So it's that balance. And again, Capricorn sun, Pisces Venus, like the combination of this. So paying, yeah. Oh, double Gemini with a Libra rising. Oh my gosh, triple Gemini. I always love seeing people's charts who have their big three in the same sign. I think that's so interesting. Like I love that. Oh no, that he has your potential suitor or your current suitor, that he has in Pisces, because he was a Pisces Venus, I believe you had said earlier, and a Capricorn sun. So that little description, keeping him in mind. Venus in Capricorn. So Venus Capricorns are as careful and cautious about love as anything else. You may sometimes be thought of as cold and calculating because you believe in the dictate. It's just as easy to fall in love with someone rich as with someone poor. In fact, that was probably said originally by Venus Capricorn. However, it is far from telling the whole story. When in love, you are loyal, faithful, and dependable. If you don't marry rich, you will work to give a mate security, and that includes material comforts. You may not be demonstrative and flowery, but what you say you mean. There is a dichotomy between your emotional life and your sexuality. You have earthly passions, but keep them separate from your mental attitude. You can be sexually involved and detached at the same time. It's giving Mr. Big from Sex and the City. Venus in this position indicates a personality that is jealous, possessive, and fearful of rejection. Once snubbed, Capricorn Venus's reaction is complete coldness. So, Leo for a big 3. Oh my gosh, I love that. So she feels that for sure. With the fire, you'll see. It'll be interesting to see how this Leo full moon, how she acts up in the best way. Moving on to Venus Sagittarius, and we're going backwards here. So Venus Sagittarians begin love affairs with the spirit of adventure. You like to experience the excitement of love in the same way that you search for diversion in the rest of your life. First attractions are always wildly romantic, and as a Venus Sagittarian, you never seem to have commonplace or banal love affairs. However, you cannot sustain the emotion and therefore never completely sacrifice your freedom to another person. What you want is the unobtainable, perfect love, and even if you could find it, you would shrink from being possessed by it. With such contradictory attitudes, it's no wonder you leave your lovers terminally puzzled. Basically, Venus Sagittarians are high-spirited, outgoing, and highly imaginative. I don't know why I thought that was funny. This is funny, but you tend to attract powerful and influential friends and find it much easier to deal with friends than with lovers. For one thing, friendship is less demanding. Luck in creative affairs surrounds projects and undertaken in foreign countries or far from home, which I think is also really interesting. And then we will have Scorpio. So I have quite a few Venus and Scorpios, so this will be cool to refresh here. So with your Venus and Scorpio, being in love is an all-consuming experience for you. There is a profound intensity to your emotions. Your sex life is passionate and demonstrative. And in a love affair, it's the sexual side of the relationship that is emphasized. However, you put love on a spiritual plane. Your deep need is to possess a lover wholly, to make your partner surrender to you, body and soul. This predictably leads to stormy scenes. It is not easy for anyone to deal with such possessiveness. You are very sensitive to any rebuff, and you can bristle like a porcupine. If someone does not respond to your love, you may even become vindictive. If you have the sun in Libra or Sagittarius, however, the jealousy drive is lightened. I have my friend Olivia, who is Pisces, Venus, and Mars. Okay, so Mars has to do also with how you take actions, but your sexuality too, and expressing sexually as well, which is interesting. I have a Libra sun, Scorpio Venus friend, and I see this in her so much. And Gemini moon, actually, she's very good at trivia. Venus Scorpios tend to become involved in lucrative marriages or business partnerships. You have a sweeping, compelling imagination, and many of you do highly original artistic work. She's also a cake decorator. Venus in Libra. You are in love with love. However, you are much more romantic than sensual. This is very Charlotte from Sex and the City. You skate gracefully over the profundities of love, and anything coarse, crude, vulgar, or earthy repels you. To you, true love is of the spirit. This is not to say that you are sexually chaste. Indeed, you fall in love too easily and often have more than one amour going at one time. However, a love affair for a Venus Libran, must have all the right trappings and ritual. The ambiance created by champagne, intimate candlelit suppers, poetry written expressly for you, and beautiful gifts quite undoes your resistance. You put great store by charming social matters. People who don't measure up are summarily dismissed, no matter what their deeper qualities may be. Venus in Libra can be cold and aloof toward anyone who presumes. The position of Venus is superb for an artistic talent or flair for design and decoration. You're successful working in creative projects with a partnership or marriage. Sometimes you combine both. I see that a lot. Libra Venuses are good at working with their partner. Oh yes, it's so true. There you go. I just realized that. I could have used you as an example. Venus Librans adore creature comforts and luxury and tend to be extravagant with money. So it's always fun to go out with a Libra Venus friend when you also can afford. It's funny. It reminds me, I don't know if you guys have seen that Kevin Hart skit where he talks about very early on in his career, he talks about going out with a bunch of basketball players and he's like talking about how, there's all these expensive bottles of champagne and liquor and all that. And he's like, makes a joke about how he left his wallet or his card is in his other wallet. So he can't pay, like all that kind of stuff because he didn't have that kind of money. And it reminds me of that. Like your Libra Venus friends are the ones that are like, if we're going to go out, we're going to go out. We only see each other, once every 6 months, but like, we're going to go out and look our best. They're the ones that take like the long time to get ready. And sometimes getting ready is more exciting than going out, sort of thing. Virgo Venus. So I'll read this again. So if you have a Venus in Virgo, you tend to be cautious about falling in love. You sometimes avoid involvement by taking small defects in a person and blowing them up out of proportion as major character flaws. You hold yourself on a tight rein because you fear that your feelings will be exploited by someone unworthy. What you want in a love relationship is someone who will regard you as special. Curiously, however, when you do give your heart away, it's often to the wrong person who will not appreciate your fine qualities. For some reason, this position of Venus tends to promote scandal. Venus Virgos have many virtues, and you are refined and intelligent, loyal, and sympathetic. Often you are an imaginative writer and teacher, and you have excellent business sense and a quiet but witty sense of humor. Many of our brilliant government leaders and humanitarians are Venus Virgos who have given their love to the world at large rather than to one person, which makes a lot of sense, especially and with you having the full 5027 channel. It's not a Virgo sign, but it reflects that. A lot of times where you'll see repeated themes once you know all the details and go in really far in your astrology, your human design, and then you come back out and you're like, oh, Virgo Venus, I see that repeated in my Taurus gate 27 and my, the Scorpio gate 50, so on and so forth. Venus in Leo. So without doing anything, Venus Leos are able to attract warm feelings on the parts of others. There is something so magnetic, so irresistibly likable about you that you enjoy great popularity. You are extravagantly affectionate and generous, buying expensive gifts for those you love and praising them to the skies in front of other people. Of course, what you must have back is intense devotion, loyalty, and lots of attention. You must always be dominant in a love affair. All the World's a Stage was written about your emotional nature. No one can make a scene or a confrontation as dramatic as a Venus Leo. Needless to say, you are drawn to the world of theater, and many of you are blessed with superb creative gifts. It's funny because Pam also says she's Pam Gregory, that she considers Leo to be one of the most creative signs, which I thought was really cool. Though self-indulgent and pleasure-seeking, you are capable of making great self-sacrifice for the happiness of someone else. So a lot of Leo Venuses we also see have that it's like if you scratch your back, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. Like it's a very clear give and take of like, okay, if you do this for me, then I'll do this for you and I'll be there for you. But it can come across as like a little. So I mean, for my Pisces Venus, a little too like give and take or too much about keeping score that like my Pisces Venus doesn't like. So I always notice that with my Leos and Venuses, I can love them for who they are, but like never in a partnership for me, right? Venus in Cancer. So as a Venus in Cancer person, you are romantic and sensitive. Being loved is more important to you than almost anything else, though you often conceal this need under a shell of reserve. You are not, however, so blindly romantic that you don't carefully consider future security. For example, if you are a man, you may not propose marriage until you have some reliable means of earning a living. If you're a woman, you make sure you won't end up sharing your lover's poverty or struggling to support him, which is good for boundaries, honestly. In a love affair, you would much rather be pursued than do the pursuing. You need the reassurance that someone wants you enough to go after you. Once you feel secure, you are demonstrative and sensual, and you have a wonderful gift for eloquence and are so intensely sentimental. You will make a big fuss over your lover's birthday and remember the anniversary of the day you first met. This position of Venus indicates strong family loyalty. Venus Cancerians are delightfully content to be at home and often love to cook. And what's interesting with Cancer Venuses as well is that we see here how with that familial loyalty, if you're somebody that's like, I'm like this, I'm like blood or not, the way that you treat me, right, is like I have strong boundaries about the way that I expect to be treated, right? So Cancer Venuses are like, yeah, but they're my mom. Yeah, but they're this person. So we see with when you're with folks that have Cancer, Venus and Cancer, oftentimes they're the people that let certain things go for the sake of the bond in the relationship with their family, right? Especially family or people that are family like to them. So also keeping that in mind. Venus in Gemini. So if you have a Venus in Gemini, you must have an intellectual rapport with somebody before your affection begins to blossom. Basically, you have a lighthearted attitude toward love. Intense, heavy emotional commitments are like an anchor around your neck. You have such a wide range of interests: travel, literature, music, seeing new places, and meeting new people, that a lover just can't be the single focus of your life. These are people who really like partners, rather than somebody that they feel like they have to schlep through life with. This lends to a certain coolness to your emotions. Your inconsistency sometimes causes you difficulties in love or marriage, but you bounce back quickly. Not even a frustrated lover can be angry at you for very long. You're too charming, witty, and funny. You enjoy being with people who have lots of friends and often more than one lover. Venus exerts its most flirtatious influence in Gemini. This position of Venus also stimulates a careless and free hand for spending money. So you have Taurus and Aries, and then we'll end with that. As a Venus and Taurus person, you are affectionate and romantic, but you don't give away your love too quickly. A bad love affair is hard on you emotionally, so you take your time deciding on the right person to love. That's true, I think, of a lot of Taurus placements too. It's like slow and steady wins the race. Yours is a very physical and earthy love nature. To you, love does not exist without sex, and you are very demonstrative and generous toward a lover, sometimes too much so. Your passion can be smothering. You have an all-consuming need to make a lover belong to you. With friends, you are willing and ready to help, but you are as cautious about forming instant friendships as about love. This position of Venus brings money, luck, sometimes through inheritance or marriage. Venus and Taurus people have a keen artistic eye and are interested in music. You also love to eat and have to fight over weight, which is interesting. A lot of Taurus moons I see that with too. And last but not least, our beautiful Venus in Aries. So this position of Venus gives a responsive and impulsive love nature. You are the kind of person who falls in love at first sight and never thinks once before following the dictates of your heart. You are strongly sensual and feel your most complete when you are emotionally involved with someone. Physical appearance is what first attracts you, but to sustain a love affair, you must also find mental compatibility. You are turned off by a sloppy appearance or loud and vulgar behavior. As an Aries, and I feel like they're the people that are also like, they won't say it, but like you know it in their face. This will be posted. I'll keep this on the YouTube channel, but I can put the link in Patreon too, so that it's easy for you to find it. Once it loads, I'll do that too, so you can have it there. Thank you. As a Venus Arian, you attract friends because of your demonstrative and enthusiastic attitude. You like to bring unexpected gifts to those you love. People with Venus and Aries are a curious mix of some sentimentality and aggressiveness. Your emotions are easily touched, but you are also demanding and somewhat selfish. Others should not expect you to settle down into calm domestic peace. You are too restless and flirtatious, too enamored of amour. So it's an interesting kind of like lens. And I think like just as something that I can say when you listen, or if you feel inclined to listen back to all of the Venus signs or your Venus sign, I'll see if there's a place that I can post the order in which I read them for like the last 20 minutes of this video. But thinking of it through the lens, okay, if we're going through a Venus retrograde, assessing if I know that this is true about my Venus sign and putting on the lens of my Venus placements, what is it that I feel that I connect with? And if this is my true nature and I resonate with that, but I've been going against my Venus sign, where can I start to create some more boundaries and better boundaries? And okay, sure, no problem. Better boundaries in my love relationships. And especially when, the last line for every one of those placements is being incredibly aware about how you spend money, right? To Anna's point in mentioning earlier too, just, counting our coins. It doesn't mean that we have to, feel like, okay, it's like, if there's anything that people always want more of, it's going to be money, right? Like a lot of people say, no much is too much, or you can never have enough sort of thing. And I kind of equate it to, I think now, like when people, it's like when you move into a bigger house, or like we moved out of a 1-bedroom apartment into a 5-bedroom house. And it's like, it's so easy to just fill the house with stuff, right? Hello again. It's so easy to fill our house with stuff. It's so easy to fill the rooms with stuff. And it's like, you can always want more space, want more room. Hello. And it's really, I think, using a lot of it globally is choosing where we spend our dollar, with whom we spend our dollar, who we invest in, right? Like a lot of the conversations I've been noticing too that I'm having with people, are like, I'm so glad, like, thank you for investing in me. And it's like, yeah, I would rather invest with you than somebody who is a billionaire, right? If I can go down to my, my little metaphysical store and get tarot cards from there, I would much rather do that. And then that builds a connection with just me knowing who's in my community, who lives around me. And I think we're kind of like, store deprived. Like I've been actually pretty depressed about, not in too much intensity. It's the drama of my Scorpio moon saying depressed, but about malls closing and malls kind of becoming dead. Cause I'm like, wow, I wonder if we'll see almost like a resurgence if we are able to go out and shop, right? Which will arguably be the case, more frivolously. But like if we're able to go out and about and shop, like malls won't look the same, right? Or there's more strip malls, at least where, especially as East Coast people, or more centralized malls. I know, for my New York City people, there's the American Dream Mall, which is not dead by any means, but the malls that are still around are definitely getting more crowded. So, focusing on where your dollar's going, where your energy is going, where and with whom, what you value. I know for myself too, like picking and choosing where I spend my time and how I spend my time is also really important. So I also encourage you to pay attention to that right now and kind of focus on that too. So, yeah. But thank you guys so much for being here. I will be back next Wednesday. Obviously, for those of you who have been with me, from TikTok and also transitioning over here, I will be on TikTok tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, my usual time. So thank you guys for kicking off my first YouTube live. It's nice because as we work through the kinks of this platform, or just me working out and triaging in true Mangen fashion, I'll figure it out when I get there. So fashionably late as always for that reason. But thank you, Megan, Anna, Orion. Who else do we have here? Megan, Anne, Orion, Anna. And I'm sorry if I'm forgetting. Oh, Chelsea, who was here earlier too. So, and anyone else who may be joining, that was a kind but silent visitor. Thank you for passing along here. But I will talk to you guys soon. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your Wednesday night, and we'll chat later. I'll see you tomorrow.